is just amping up is the best thing. Maybe we could call it 2025 amp up. You don't need any coffee. You don't need a double espresso unless you're going to join us and buy me a coffee, double espresso, to keep us going through the night here. Thank you so much for your support. We're going to read some of your comments there and answer some questions for those who supported us last week. Right away, though, this polar vortex, and I have a couple things to say about YouTube pushing back a lot of the information because of the Achilles heel is the wind turbines and the solar panels that are going to get covered with snow. The wind turbines are going to be covered in ice. They're going to have to shut them down like they did when ERCOT blacked out in 2021 in Texas. But because I'm talking about the renewables being the Achilles heel and our power grid going down and rolling blackouts because of this storm, oh, you can't share the reach. 93,000 views on the first video, 130,000 views on the second video, and then I really started dissecting into where the windmills were going to be lost, where the production of power was going to stop first, where the blackouts are poised to set in first. And because it was all based on renewables, pointing fingers, 13,000 views on that one. Like, you can see the ridiculousness of it all. Ridiculous censorship. YouTube, shame on you, man. And we're trying to warn people out here of the absolute just intensity of historic dangerous cold sweeping through the United States. Over in Russia, they're breaking near all-time record cold temperatures in Siberia, if you can even imagine that. We got snows covering Athens. We got snows down in Tunisia blanketing the North African deserts. There's a weird, mysterious fog all around the planet at this moment. But I really wanted to focus on tonight. You know, I've been following incessantly this polar vortex. I saw it coming out long range about 5 days ago when I saw the models. But I spun back around over in Asia and I went to severe weather EU, and I could see there how this thing was moving, and we'd seen the same setup in a few years prior. Now, because I've been doing this thing since what, late 2013? I was a coffee buyer in Myanmar, and I started to see a lot of anomalies with this whole global warming thing when it was getting cold in Myanmar at that time. So looking at, you know, how something is setting up for a winter in terms of the North Atlantic, or, you know, what's happening in Asia, that air masses are going to get pushed over, and the absolute ridiculous cold that's up in the North Pole right now. I knew something significant that got knocked off. It wasn't a stratospheric warming event, but something very similar. And everything was dislodged. But the absolute ridiculously cold temperatures that, and I kid you not, all these charts I've been looking at in the last 5 days, every one of them has literally been off the chart. And when I say that, there's no BS assessment here. When you look at a certain chart, generally it's in a parameter or range that has been forecast prior, or it sits within a bounded range. This was outside every range on every chart. That's what was so, you know, wow factor about it, is the cold, it went off the charts below, and then they had to give individual readings of it. It went outside the color codes. And again, looking at it, didn't matter if it was Celsius or if it was Fahrenheit or if it was degrees Kelvin. Whatever chart you looked at, it was literally off the charts. All of it. Oh, that's one off Next Lab there that's running for us. And here's the thing I kept getting at too, is this deep, like what you see gray color there, is something like 40 degrees to 50 degrees Fahrenheit below the average normal temperature where your region is. And that is going to sweep over to the East Coast, and Washington, D.C. area will experience something around 40 degrees. I'll call it, say 40. Some readings had 47 degrees Fahrenheit under the normal. And, you know, up there, it's below freezing for their normal temperatures now. So when you're looking at on the ground temperatures, they were sub-zero. Now, Washington, D.C. gets precedent power delivery over everything else. Hands down, no question asked. They ripped power out of TVA and sent us into blackouts last time. They're, well, in my opinion, going to do it again. This is far colder for a far longer period of time than it was when we in TVA got blacked out for Christmas Eve in 2023. It's going to get really cold for a long time. And now the ice storms are coming in. And if I could just preface today's show is YouTube is censoring this information because it is very much revolving around the non-reliability and the breakdown of the grid because of we went to wind, we went to solar. So the Southeast US, at least the snow models now, have a huge amount of solar farms under snow. And I reached out for the last few days to ask people, what about the technology on this? Are there built-in systems to heat the panels to then de-ice them? And the answer was no. That at certain temperatures, the sun will do its thing, and if it can grab a little bit of sunlight somewhere on the panel, it will start that defrost just naturally. It'll warm up in that area, and then more snow will fall off, and the next area would warm up. But the temperatures they're looking at right now are going to be, 15, 20 degrees Fahrenheit in the Southeast US, even cooler. So a lot of these solar farms have not seen temperatures this cool ever since their installation. So, that was, all right, that's going to take off 4% of the production in the Southeast US. Right now, when this ice storm rips through in the Midwest, it's going to take down another 4 to 5% of the capacity of electrical production through wind. And we're going to be going into record draw on the heating, home heating for those who are using electric. So places like Tennessee and the TVA and the Southeast, normally they would be exporting power because it's relatively mild down here. And I've done about 5 videos on this. My sixth sense intuitively just told me something wasn't right. It seemed like, Ransom, you and I, we went up to Tim Pool's, and I am very much a believer in manufactured storms, steering them, not controlling them, but adding something on the frontal boundary that would amplify it. And I got a message earlier tonight from somebody. I'm just going to say somebody. You know who you are if you're listening tonight. Thanks for the info. They said that generally the geoengineering is a crisscross pattern that we see in the sky, but this was all parallel. Nothing was crossing, all parallel. And I said, that really is strange. You know how that ice storm is? It looks like a parallel line of ice storm coming through. If you look at all the models that are forecasting ice accumulations, anywhere from 1 inch of ice down to a 1/4 inch ice, like 12 inches, 17 inches of snow. It looks like just one long straight line across everywhere there's a windmill. All the wind capacity. First, you're going to get the ice storms, and that'll be coming on the 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th. And then we get into the 10th, 11th, and 12th, where we get this Arctic blast. And the reason ERCOT went down last time was they had the same thing. This Arctic air came over, and this really, really super cool air is still, S-T-I-L-L, still air. They actually call it like a wind drought. Well, there's no capacity. It goes almost to zero wind when it's that cold. Plus, everything malfunctions anyway when it's that cold, those temperatures. And wind power. So it's going to get iced. There's going to be an enormous amount of lines that are going to come down with the ice. The wind turbines are going to shut off because of the ice. And then we're going to get into, if it wasn't just directly ice, now that's not going to be super all-encompassing. It's going to have a very large effect. It's going to probably take down 10% of the wind capacity from like Lake Michigan west. But then when we get into this wind drought, this thing is going to absolutely just shut off everything. There won't be any wind to push any turbines. So everywhere there's wind, let's say from Texas north, it's all going to pretty much go to zero. Now, obviously, it's not going to be 100%. There's going to be some areas that do have some wind, but I would say on a predominant amount of an average, there'll be almost no wind. And you're going to have these extreme cold temperatures that are going to start breaking and snapping a huge amount of infrastructure. But then the snow models show a huge amount of snowfall, like I said, over the Southeast US in conjunction at the exact same time with downed iced lines, iced up turbines, and the ones that didn't get iced in are going to have a no-flow wind pattern over them. A quarter of the United States will have a no-flow wind. It'll be so cold, no wind is going to move. And then you add on top of that the snowed-in panels, and you add on top of that the absolute record draw that's coming, and then you add in on top of that the surveys they did after ERCOT, and none of our grid got repaired. The mid-intercontinental, that Gulf area is going to be the tripwire that sends us into blackouts. They were struggling at regular demand, and we were coming into some unprecedented demand that we have never seen before in terms of how all-encompassing this area of cold is. It is so vast and so cold and so beyond the normal. I mean, we were literally, they always talk about the once in a 500-year storm, and North Carolina with Hurricane Helene got that once in a 1,000-year rainfall. Well, we are literally at once in a 500-year cool event right now. This is how far out of the ranges it is of anything we've ever built to withstand this, anything we've ever experienced in renewable power to deal with this. And our infrastructure is just not set up for it. These are literally Arctic tundra temperatures that are coming down into the southeast US and will touch us and tickle us down here. Arctic tundra temperatures all the way into Georgia. It's hard to even fathom such a thing. And it's going to be here for days. And it's pulse number 1, pulse number 2, and then pulse number 3. And if we didn't get our grids back up and if there's so much damage, then you know what? Ransom, I want to pick your brain on this dark winter script thing, because it's just too many things are adding up. The weird fogs, the straight line contrails that are up there. They didn't repair the grid. And we're coming into something that far surpassed any blackouts of the last 10 to 15 years. It's going to make those look like child's play in terms of dealing with the cold and the demand during the cold. But see, now we have all these AI data farms, data centers, Bitcoin mining operations. We never had those before during these last blackouts. They're going to get power first. Washington, D.C. will get power first. You're going to be left probably 5th or 10th down the line, maybe scraping for a watt of power somewhere. These data centers were already gargantuan hoovers of electricity anyway. And then the AI, facilities in itself, those are something different. It's just everywhere you look, the amount of power that is being taken from the grid, it's just barely hanging together anyway. The amount of power that is nearly at record demand every day, if you didn't know this, because all the additional technology that we're trying to run at this moment. Now we're coming into the coldest period in hundreds of years. At the same time, all of these they're not going to turn off a data center to give you heat in your home. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. And the palatial mansions around Washington, D.C., they shall be serviced first while you freeze. So the reason it's a long-winded entry into tonight's show is please get ready. Please get ready. This is no joke. If you can learn something about cold weather preps and you can compare with people, please get ready. Whatever you need to do now, you have a couple more days to get ready. In my personal opinion, I would err on the side of caution because there's so many unknowns, and this is truly an unprecedented event. And I don't know where that's going to leave us, but Ransom, I'd love to pick your brain on the Dark Winter script and see what you're thinking tonight. Welcome anyway, Ransom Godwin here. I'm a Mike Hogg dude. You got to keep me back.
That's okay. I think it is going to be a dark winter for a lot of people that don't prepare right now. If they're not, this is like the hurricane. It's not like we want to say I told you so, but we did mention it, and this is the time. Don't wait for outside sources to help you. Just be prepared for it right now, which I hate to say it. If there are power outages, hopefully they'll get fixed relatively fast. But if you get stuck in one of those areas that they just can't get to for whatever reason, you're on your own. So I would suggest, if not literally having a stack of firewood, despite not having a fireplace, that you would have plenty of wood furniture around. Or, there's things like this that you could buy real quick if there's any left at the store. Hand warmers, you can, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. I would suggest, which I have done for a long time, is go to the thrift store and buy yourself some Gore-Tex. It's so perfectly insulated against moisture, and if you have something warm under it, you get hot. And I've been out and I forgot what they called that, like in 2011 or 2012 was Snowmageddon, when the whole Northeast was covered in like 3 foot of snow, and I drove through it and I was out there playing in the snow in my Gore-Tex, sweating. It was, I could see how just with the right stuff, you don't have to worry about anything. But cotton kills. So keep that in mind. If you have things that you think are warm and they're made out of cotton, if they get wet, you're done. And so you just don't want to wear that. You want plastic on the outside, or plastic type clothing that will repel the moisture and block the wind. And then you can basically hang out in it, and it's not an emergency anymore. The problem with that is they don't make Gore-Tex suits readily available for children. So there's not really small sizes. They're almost all adult sizes, at least in the military stuff. And, ordering online now is just, it's too late. So you got to find things that are at the store now that are going to help you along. And blankets are not a bad idea. I mean, plenty of generations have got through with a coal and some blankets. Heating up a pan with some rocks in it right out of the oven. If you have a gas stove, at least, you'll still be doing that. I mean, these are old school things people did in these kind of winters that didn't have electricity in the first place. So they weren't going to be shocked because they were, the winters were brutal all the time. And there's plenty of old style ways to stay warm. And I hate to say it, having a stockpile of burnable things, it's not a bad idea.
You're warming the planet, Ransom. Stop. My grandchildren don't have a chance with you and your wood burning.
Right. Well, some of that old furniture's ugly anyway. Start with the knockdown toxic furniture from what are they, IKEA and stuff. No, I'm kidding. Don't burn that. You need real wood.
Don't burn that in the house. Yeah. Can you imagine breathing
Don't burn that.
Oh my God. Might as well put the tailpipe of your generator. And again, speaking of that generator, you got to vent that out, man. You don't want that carbon monoxide in, do you?
No. One thing my grandparents used to do is they had a little machine that rolled up the newspaper, and if you got your outtake good, you won't have to worry about any of the ink or anything like that. Plus, it's not really that toxic in the first place unless you're in there inhaling it right out of the fireplace. But she got by winter after winter after winter just rolling up her newspapers and throwing it in there to keep warm. They even bought a little machine that would, roll it up, and you just put a rubber band on it until it keeps its form, and that's that.
Yeah, I was in South Africa, and some dudes were rolling joints and newspaper down. Interesting.
Whoa. Sorry about that. Wrong button.
Yeah, longevity on that's probably pretty slim, but just saying. Witnessed it firsthand.
Let me fix your camera on my other scene because Skype reset everything. So let me fix this here. Just real quick. And you guys can see into the matrix there. Technical difficulty. We got to add David. Here we go.
Through that.
And you're back.
Good. And I really hope that and that we can see through the illusion of renewables, that when this storm comes and it does start to black out, which I hope everybody can be safe when this happens, you really need to get ready, that the Achilles heel of this renewables will be laid bare for all to see, and we will demand that never, ever happens again, because it'll be such the magnitude that political careers will be lost. And I'm hoping the entire spectrum shifts, because this is unreliable power. And magnetic motors we never really delved into. I mean, Nikola Tesla had the inventions quite some time ago, and Marconi and Brown, they started messing with the electrogravitics, and suddenly they just disappeared. We didn't have to combust a single item on our planet to spin a rod, to move something, to generate. I hope we go to these new methods. Maybe this is it, because, you and I had talked about before, okay, you're seeing a lot of drones in the sky / UFO / whatever, unidentified somethings, as the possible soft drip into, hey, we reverse engineered some of the technology on a crashed craft. Okay, that's electrogravitics. You can put this thing in your house. It's worse. It runs on the Earth's magnetic field. It's basically magnets spinning oppositely against each other. But then at the same time, would it not make sense at the same time, if the grid crashes, that it's unreliable, that they would say, okay, we got to halt this. If every winter from this point forward is going to crash, the grid's going to go out. Nobody is going to rely on this any longer. We're going to have to come to new sources. So think about it from different angles. All right, we need a different source of power because the grid's crashing, because the snowstorms are going further south every year. The polar vortex is getting more intense every year, which disturbs the flow of air. around the turbines, and we get into record cold, record demand. That doesn't work any longer. We got crashed craft, quote unquote, and we have to do away with renewables, but we needed to go away from combusting stuff because we needed to reduce CO2 anyway. Like, you can see how this all just fits into the perfect narrative. Oh, and by the way, we can reset entire industries and restart the economy on a debt-based system again. Wow. What a 2025 late Christmas present that would be.
You know, it's pretty obvious to me that this grid that they've built and the way that it is now wasn't intended to last very long. And not only that, they've had plenty of opportunity for decades, I'm going to say about 50 years, to upgrade what we use as a grid, and they just keep patching it and patching it and patching it and never upgrading. So that tells me that they're going to do something like they're doing in New Mexico, which is basically phasing out any kind of cheap renewable energy and replacing it with these god-awful fans. And you wouldn't believe how many they put up. I've been driving to Colorado and back on the same path because it's like the fastest. It's away from the cities. And now that whole area has been taken by the government, forced to put up these giant, ugly monstrosities that just destroyed the landscape. And half of them aren't even on all the time. And now they've made this deal with a Chinese company to make more solar panels right out there in the middle. And this is the thing that really bothers me, is they're putting these toxic, supposedly green industries out in the best prime ranching areas of New Mexico that's out away from the city. And then on top of that, that's where all of our aquifer runs through. So from the Rocky Mountains, you have the Rio Grande that comes down, but you also have this giant artesian aquifer that's right underneath the mountains, and it comes out in the valleys. People used to, dig their wells there and get water. You're not going to be able to do that when they start burying these solar panels that are getting destroyed by golf ball sized hail that's pretty common out here. It's going to destroy that, and it's going to toxify large areas of ranching land and the aquifer below it. So it seems like they're just trashing this. It's meant to collapse. And every time they do this, they're going to ask for billions of dollars more to fix it or upgrade it into one of these green areas instead of just fixing it, with new equipment that has protection against EMPs or the sun. I mean, this is all easy technology to do, and they haven't done it. And they've known about the scenario for the sun forever. I mean, I'm sure they were talking about it in think tanks in the 20s. What are we going to do if the sun burps? Because they knew at that point that was a real phenomenon that happened. I mean, the Carrington event wasn't that far back from them, and they knew just the little bit of infrastructure they had then got destroyed. Now think about today, and I'm looking around my neighborhood at all these cardboard boxes with the electrical grid in it and tied to it with a smart meter. They're all just ready to burn. Matter of fact, when it does happen here, which is quite often, at least once a day, somebody's house is burning down. It's gone in a second. And with a little bit of wind, cold, hot, it doesn't matter. It's torched. It's totally gone within minutes. And almost all of those people have no insurance. I mean, most of the class of people that have the cheaper end homes do not have insurance for flood, for hurricane, for tornado, for fire, for nothing. And that's the status of most lower class Americans. And when you look at these maps, like where the hurricane blows through or where this blizzard, polar vortex is going to run through, there's lots and lots of people that are just totally unprepared. They're not going to do anything if the power turns off except for wait. And if you're in that category, it's not that big a deal if you take some small steps to ensure your warmth in case it gets too crazy. I mean, human beings were living out there when these things happened, and they survived it. So you can do it too without electricity.
You got to think about, pre-Younger Dryas, when we were coming out of the last ice age. You understand that people were living for 70,000 years during a full-blown glaciation period on the planet, which was far colder than it is now. That's why a huge amount of habitation was, squeezed around the equator. So if they could do it then, you can do it now. And again, one thing you probably want to have is a radio so you have communication with the outside world. That way you can get updates. When do they think it might be repaired? Because seeing what had happened in North Carolina, the first couple of days, people thought, okay, it's got to be, they're expecting some giant cavalry and helicopters and all this thing coming in to save them. Then it turned into day 3 and then day 4, and the looting started. Okay, if there's several feet of snow out there, that's going to slow people down. But when they get hungry enough and desperate enough, and there's no help coming, and that's the scary thing. If you don't have any plan of anything, you're completely isolated in that house, cold, cut off, no food, no warmth. And then you're just waiting, just shivering, just praying that it doesn't come on the next hour. It doesn't come on the next hour. You're coming into sunset and it's going to drop to sub-zero again. You're like, oh, we can't handle another night like this. No. And that would be a frightening moment then. That would be terrifying if you were not prepared. So I wanted to say one thing about where your area was too. You brought up that Harry Reid, governor at the time when the Bundy Ranch standoff took place. Now, there's the whole Bundy Ranch thing. That's a chapter in itself. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, the solar farm that was going out there was funded by the Chinese as well. And you might say, okay, that bakes it in the cake. That's the reason it was happening. Well, yeah, that was in part. But, written in the contract after seeing this, it came made public after a while. It was an old gold mining area known for gold reserves. But they were going to have to top strip 12 to 18 feet of, I forget exactly how many acres it was, thousands of acres. But they were going to top strip off that, put the dirt in containers, and then take it back to China and then refine, smelt, or pan the gold out with all that topsoil that it contained gold ore. That was one thing that was there too. So when you start to look at these operations where they're putting up windmills and solar panels, for example, a lot of these areas are designated wildlife zones, like can't go in there. It's a protected reserve, whatever. But under the guise of coming in with renewable energies, you would be able to top strip or strip mine that top 10, 15, 18, 20 feet of a known area with gold deposits. And where does that go is the question. Because it seems to be the normal thing now, because we set up all these rules and regulations. It's great to protect nature, but we should be able to utilize it too if we don't destroy it. But to come in and be able to plow somewhere completely flat plain, but oh yeah, by the way, all the gold reserves from those abandoned mines, we need to strip out all that rock too. You just hope you hit a vein in there. Don't tell anybody. Pickers are coming out. Get some big nuggets. But this seems to be the roundabout way they're going and getting, at least in my opinion, some of the easy low-hanging fruit gold reserves off in these select locations. And I would encourage you to look at previous gold claims, abandoned gold mines, and where these solar panel farms are going on, because they need to, like I say, take off the top anywhere from 5, 10 to 40 feet to get these things flat. And that would be a no-go area. They wouldn't even barely let you pan for gold as somebody with a little pickaxe, and you go up there and you're trying to find your black sand, and that you were restricted from even doing that. You had to bring your own water in so you could. That's crazy. And now they're letting them strip off thousands and thousands and thousands of acres in these same areas. So I don't know, something fishy is going on all around the place. I don't know. I see the cascading failure. Ransom, you had that article up there just a second ago. I was so super busy trying to get other things done for the show. I didn't really catch up on the news since the afternoon about the updates, but I did see one update, and they're now looking for inches, plural, of freezing rain across what is considered the densest of the wind turbines in the Midwest, south of Lake Michigan, going west. And yeah, that blue area right there, pretty much what you're showing, that's where all the wind farms in America are, is in the center of that blue is, if you were going to say, where are all the wind farms in America, Dave? Okay, look at the map right there where all that blue is. It's so quirky that it's almost an exact match. Take all the wind farms off because of no wind or icing, blanket the southeast U.S. with snow and cover up the solar panels, and put record demand from record cold temperatures. And what do you have? You got a disaster of the ages. Of the ages. And how long would it be before your power comes back on? I mean, if this really happens, Ransom, and I would, what do you think if the power stayed off for the rest of the winter? Like, let's say it goes down and it gets so broken and it just absolutely cascades into catastrophic failure, which I hope it doesn't. But how long do you think it would be before the grid would come back on in 2 to 3 months, comes back on in April sometime? How many people do you think would survive through the winter? And is this the Deagle report coming to life in front of our faces here, along with the Dark Winter script?
Well, hopefully it ain't that bad. But, if you think about the conditions of constant cold, I don't know how long this is going to last, but if it's any time further than like a week, you're going to start having elderly people drop off. You're going to have kids getting sick, not necessarily dying from the cold, but just the overall conditions. And by the way, a lot of people are sick right now. I just got whole family just got over something. I don't know what it was. Sniffles, congestion, a little fever and body aches. And all we did is just travel around for Christmas. So who knows where we got that, at the gas station, people that had it already and felt better. But if you imagine being just a little sick with these sub-zero temperatures, so it's going to be pretty cold in your house also, especially if you don't have the right heating or the right insulation. I can see it getting pretty bad. It's almost the same scenario as, like when you'll have a heat wave in the upper 80s in Chicago for consecutive nights, and the nighttime and the daytime don't really change that much. People start dying because there's no fluctuation in the temperature for their body to reset. So the same thing happens when you're cold. And the problem is that same blue area is the same area with the cities with some very big homeless and vulnerable populations. So they're going to be, I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to start setting up heating tents for the homeless or the poor? It's not just the homeless. Some people have a home. They just can't afford bills, so they don't have them for whatever reason. And I've met plenty of those people. I've met homeless people up in the Northeast that live on the streets, and they try to insulate themselves and find a warm spot. But the fact is, not everybody makes it through regular winters, much less, something that's harsh, because that's what's coming. I don't know how long it's going to last, but the question is will we have repeated weather patterns like this to come? Because we're barely, 10 days, 12 days into winter. And just a few weeks ago, they were trying to tell us here in New Mexico that, global boiling, we were having above average temperatures. And then you go look them up and it's like 1 degree one place, but then right next to it was a temperature that was lower than normal. So they pick and choose and cherry pick these temperatures, especially out of cities, because, you have a bunch of reporting stations, and they'll pick the hottest one they can find that's like on the south side in the sun with no wind. And they'll say, look, it's a record-breaking 80 degrees. But it's not really, because if you go around the building into the shade, it's like 60 degrees because it's a low winter sun, and it's actually cold outside if you're not in direct sunlight. And they've been doing that here. So it's odd that they even showing that those are extremely below average temperatures, because that counters their narrative. But they will say that it's caused by man-made climate change, and that's why it's getting colder, that's why it's getting hotter, that's why it's more humid or less humid on any given day. If you remember back in the summer, they were trying to convince people that they had the hottest record ever in Florida, and they went out there to the very top layer of the ocean and took a temperature reading from the very, very top in a little area that was a hot pocket, and everywhere else around that, the water temperature was normal. But they failed to mention that on the headlines. They just look at this one little spot where there's some hot water and it's a couple of degrees above what we think it should be. And then you have to keep in mind, they haven't even been keeping records long enough to compare the records to anything, because we haven't been doing it long enough to have an accurate picture of real weather cycles. You can't just take a 100-year picture, if that, and say, look, this is the pattern for Earth all throughout history. So if it gets a little warmer, it's your fault and you need to pay more taxes because we need to nip this carbon problem in the bud.
Speaking of nipping, CJK Pack, thank you so much for the super chat. Have a half a cup. Is that half a cup of moonshine or half a cup of coffee? The double espresso, keep us going through the night. I'll dovetail onto that thought about Florida. Now, I did an enormous amount of study on the Maunder minimum, of this grand solar minimum called the Maunder minimum, 1640s. Now, the Seminole Indians, or the Seminole peoples in Florida, had a term for snow down in the Everglades, and it was called the Great White Rain. So think about this for a moment. Conditions can get far, far colder than they are now. We're just getting a taste of what a solar low and dropping temperatures on an average of probably 3 degrees Celsius planet-wide would bring to us. These types of winters would be normal. So when the Seminole chiefs are giving accounts of the Great White Rain, and they were talking Everglades, not up Panhandle, Everglades, that would freeze all the way solid every winter for several years in a row. Not just one off and it was done. It was several years in a row. The Everglades would freeze. And now we're talking about, oh, this species there, the grass is there, they're going to die, they're going to... Okay, the water froze multiple years in a row during winter, and it snowed. So you tell me what kind of huge climate shift that is when they have an actual term for it. But that's the 1640s. So again, this thing that we're seeing, I don't know if it's going to snow down in Orlando, but they are expecting well below into the mid-20s in Orlando and down into freezing temperatures where? The Everglades again. It'll drop right down around 30 degrees. But it's going to take a lot more cool than that for a prolonged period to get the Everglades to freeze over, where they talked about ice on iced over waters. But we're starting to repeat some patterns here. And again, I'll come back with you. Why are they not repairing any of the infrastructure? You're talking about the power grid. Okay. Well, what about the bridges, the locks, the highway system? That's not being repaired either. So what does somebody know that perhaps it can't be repaired, and that it was just a one-off cost, and it was done to bring society forward with manufacturing, to get us to a point where continuity of government could be achieved and kept intact for this change? Because if you're looking at a full global civilization and a global temperature has dropped 3 degrees Celsius, about 5 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit, we don't grow that much food anymore after that. We're going to have to shift growing zones. Different crops will be grown in different locations. That's why there was such mass starvation in the 1640s to 1670s. They even changed the way they raised animals. They used to raise an enormous amount of cattle in England, of all places, and they went away with that right away. They went down to sheep and goat. And you can watch this change into smaller animals, pig, sheep, goat. There were no more cattle. So these changes are real. You can see how they've ebbed and flowed through history. And here we are back at an absolute fingerprint of something that has not been around in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So if this becomes the normal pattern, and that was a prediction coming into extreme low solar activity, so solar cycle 26 coming up here, it was predicted for solar cycle 25. But what if we do come into an extreme low of solar activity that drops global temperatures? You as a government body and leaders of nations that understood this cycle was here, whether it was solar cycle 25 or solar cycle 26, your time is limited to keep this world intact as we know it. Like you would duct tape and bale wire it as long as you could to keep it functional. And that's basically what we're seeing is run it out. Like, you ever just like, you're going to get a new car or, you want to buy another car, I should say, it doesn't have to be new, but you want to get another vehicle. And you're like, oh, we'll just keep driving it for a little while longer. And if it really breaks, we might even get, and then something breaks. You're like, okay, we're going to repair it, but, let's just keep looking for the next car instead of selling it immediately. Okay, we're going to fix the alternator on it. Okay, well, yeah, this repair, this will get us to, and you just keep going down there. Okay, now it's the same thing. It's not meant to be fixed. And you and I both come to the same conclusion, but why? Why now? Why is the world being shoved down our throats in this rapid, like almost sloppy fashion to get us to change so quickly? Like the entire economy is moving, the cryptocurrency, we're coming into data centers, you got the AI, humans are no longer needed. Everybody's going to be jobless in a minute or two because the AI is taking over and there's going to be self-delivery, self-this, that. Like we're being phased out and the entire world's shifting. But is it really because AI is coming in now? Or is it they know through the past cycles that humanity, the carrying capacity drops tremendously, that there would just be less humans on the planet. So maybe robots and AI could take over the functions of where humans were. If it gets to the point of that, like stability where they can get off the wire and start cruising around. You see a lot of videos, but are they truly there yet? That's the question. Maybe they're 50 years ahead of where they say they are. I don't know. Somewhere in the middle. But I agree with you, man. This infrastructure is not being upgraded on purpose. And this storm, I think, is going to be a wake-up call for a lot of people. A lot of people are going to be like questioning, why do we put all these unreliable systems in place here?
Well, I was looking at, different models. Some of them don't put South Florida above 45 degrees. But I was just thinking, if I was a native back in the day and it was, a bad winter and the cold was stretching down, that means there would probably be less to eat and stuff. So right when it got the right temperature, you got iguana stew. It's just falling out of the tree. It's like a blessing from the gods. Ready-made meals falling on the ground. They don't even run from you or nothing because they're so slow. But according to Ventusky, if you skip down to Monday...
Oh, is that Ventus guy there?
Yeah, it shows, some really low temperatures, but it doesn't forecast it as bad as some of the other meteorologists are doing. And then on the 6th, it looks pretty bad for the... around Kansas and Missouri and stuff, about 0 to 5. But these are all predictions, so we don't really know.
Yeah, run that out to the 13th if you could,
Okay.
Ransom, and you'll see where it drops out in temperature. That's just the first wave. Okay, so everybody out there, please understand, this is just the first wave of these 3 pulses that are coming in. This is not the storm itself. This is just one of 3 pulses inbound.
So
The big one, the dropout of temperature should occur right around the 13th, 12th and 13th. 11, 12, 13, those are danger days. And then as we come rolling around the 17th, that's another set of danger, but it's too far out for reliable models to really pick up anything. I mean, yeah, they can
Right.
give you some indication, but...
Looks like Monday.
Oh, and Ransom, if I could here, anybody who... If you appreciate what we're doing tonight and you like the conversations we're having, please jump over to buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. We try to read the comments as you continue to support us through our work here. Someone, appreciate your updates in East Tennessee as well. Thank you. Yeah, I've been focusing on East Tennessee because it shows tremendous temperatures running right up against the range here, getting up into the mountains of North Carolina. So here in East Tennessee is going to be one of these points where everything mixes together with the ice, the snow, the wind, and the cold. This is like one of the huge and heavy demarcation lines of all this coming together at one place. And again, TVA is here. And we blacked out last time in Christmas of 2023. So this is going to be colder and longer duration. So, who's going to steal our power? Rich man north of Richmond. That's exactly what it is. And Varda at startmail.com. Thank you so much. 5 double espressos. Oh, that's going to keep us cranking. Ransom's going to be shaking like a leaf running around the house looking for seeds, wild foraging after the show. Lena, you guys are the high point of the week. Thank you so much. News-wise, I appreciate you so much. Well, I appreciate you, Lena. Thank you for continuing to support us so we can continue to do the research. Because that's what we do during the week is we research. And to be the high point of the week, wow. There's probably a lot of other things that I would think would be a high point of the week. But this show, if we can bring us some information to keep you and your family safe, that's the reason we do it. Really is. And Ben Davidson, Suspicious Observers. Bro, thank you for the triple espresso. Micronova's coming. I don't know when. You say 2042-ish, but I'm sure there'll be some lead up into that. So, Ben, if you're listening tonight, shout out, man. And thank you for sharing your quality information on solar activity and what we can expect on how solar activity can disrupt our electrical grids as well. And that solar activity disrupting a grid is going to be far, far, far longer in repairing it than ice storms, record cold, and snow on panels. It'll come around springtime and all this stuff will melt off and we'll get to repairing. But micronova, again, Carrington event, that's going to be a long time repairing. So we would need to get ready for so. And it brings us space weather and also space forecasting, weather forecasting. We had those two auroras, double CME coming in on top. New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, we had a double CME rolling on top. I guess they were seeing pink and purple auroras as far south as Ireland. Here in the U.S., you had to go like upstate New York, northern Michigan. Now, Ransom, did you see any aurora? Because they said it somehow the thing bent and went all the way down into Arizona. So the East Coast didn't see it. It was really far north in the East Coast, but somewhere out in the West, they were able to see it really much further down, Colorado, somewhere around the Four Corners area. I don't know if you saw any of that, but the solar activity and weakened magnetic field of our planet might play into some of this as well. I'm not sure.
Well, we just had a nice magnetic storm hit us. We had a KP up there of 9 or 8, I think it is right there. Yeah.
Did it rock 8 up to 8 or 9? Okay. I didn't know if it was a G. That sounds like a G4 or G5 then.
That was Wednesday. That was last night. So I don't know what it is right now. I think it, here it leveled out. So it's low now, but I wanted to show you this. When you look at this map here, you see this little swirling area around Kansas and Missouri. If you just play this, you can see the little swirl move east coast, and right behind it, it just pulls all this polar vortex.
If you need to pull the graphic, I see myself on the screen. I don't see your screen overlay there.
Here we go. Here, let me go back. Yeah. Go back to the day there.
Oh, that little squirrel tail. Yeah, that's like the scorpion whip there.
Yeah, so like
yikes. Sunday, if that was a tornadic pattern, you'd be terrified because there'd be tornadoes coming off that back, that
so Sunday,
tail.
You see this spinning right here, right outside of Springfield, and if you just hit the play button on their prediction, you'll see that move east coast and this polar vortex move in to replace it. It's moving kind of slow, but yeah, you see that.
No, and that line right there between the purple and the green and the yellow.
Yeah.
That's going to be some ferocious weather. They were predicting tornadoes here in Tennessee because of that line moving through already.
Here we
so what we saw
Monday.
just a few days ago with all those tornadoes ripping down in Texas and further to the east, we're going to see something like that again here.
Right in here.
Yeah, and then and as soon as that gets over to Washington, D.C., mark my words, everybody, Washington is going to pull that power because they are not going to go without luxury and having every single building heated. We're coming toward the inauguration anyway. Everybody's going to be in their offices. The staff of everything is going to be fully staffed. We're coming into a transition of power. Every building will need to be fully heated at this time. It's not like in the middle of, you're not even in the middle of some sort of, off-swing elections or anything. We're in a full transition of power for the government. Everybody's going to be in Washington. They're going to need far more power than they normally do because so many people are working from home. They're working from the offices. Buildings are only half staffed, but this time they're coming into full staffing. Everybody's all hands on deck, all the security, they're getting ready for this thing. And just days after this event, like Washington is going to be full and pulling heavy. Everything they could possibly muster in for electrical resources. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of wild cards happening right now that aren't normal.
We can't even talk
there would
about.
never be that much power demand for Washington and vicinity, D.C., of course, in vicinity. without this inauguration coming up. Like the power demand will probably be 80% less than what it will be this time. But they are going to be throttling the power, and they get it first. They will black us out in Tennessee to take the power from TVA that direction. I'm sorry, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Well, not to
the sky
mention,
is blue. I have no comment about it except it's a numeral. It's a number.
I had this big, browser set up with all of the good news that's out there, but I realized how YouTube and ever people do it. So when you first start when those stories first come out, you got to be real careful about talking about what you think it is or what happened. You have to wait for their official narrative to come out, and then you're allowed to analyze it from there. But we did kind of mention a couple of weeks ago that we expected some, controversial stuff to happen, but everybody was tripping on the drones, which in my opinion is probably related.
Distraction, fake alien invasion.
Well, it's more than that. Those are real government assets up there. They've basically admitted as much. They're running ops. They're classified, so you're not going to get to hear about it. They're not going to say, yes, it's ours in that way and say, well, we're doing this or that. But I do find it ironic that I don't know if it's because of the, pressure on people that the future is rolling forward, but almost everybody expected a bunch of stuff, either New Year's Eve or on New Year's Day, and they gave it to us. And whether that's just individual people or there's ops or what's going on, in the background, all of the same programs are running. So news you missed would be along the border. It's basically a combat zone now. Mexico is using real assets to go after the cartel. And if there's any indication, Trump is going to be intensifying that. So you can expect a lot of craziness in the coming months along the border. But not just that, we've let a lot of people in. And matter of fact, there's rumors, I'm going to try to verify it, that there are uniformed Chinese military in Mexico right now doing different things. I don't know if they're like a protection group or whatever for people that are having meetings, but there's a lot of weird things being shook up in the background, which puts the near future kind of in no man's land. A lot of things can happen right now, and they're going to try to squeeze all of that in to the next 18 days because they have to get certain things established before the next administration takes over. So you're going to see a lot of ops out there, or things that look like ops, I should say.
Now, what could get accomplished if the Eastern Power Grid was totally down and blacked out for weeks up into the inauguration?
Anything would be up for grabs because you're totally
Anything
blind.
And everything, wouldn't it?
Everything would be blind.
Convenient timing,
right? And
nobody would know anything until the power turned back on, and then all this stuff had suddenly changed. And like, wow, what happened? How did that happen? Anything and everything on a wish list could be accomplished if everybody was in the dark, and that's no pun intended. Like literally in the dark for weeks,
days, weeks. We did have a hurricane, right? And that showed us that they have no money or resources for a real emergency. They've spent it, or at least they're not willing to reallocate funds for emergencies for Americans. So if you keep that in mind, any big event that happens, there's not going to be much help coming to show up. And they've already demonstrated that with the last real emergency.
And what are the parallels there, Ransom? Exactly parallel is they didn't have any electrical infrastructure to replace. The substations were washed away in the floods of North Carolina. They had nothing to replace them. Almost all of the electrical infrastructure that we have is ready to go, plug and play. It's gone. It's been shipped over to our favorite Ukalan country over there. And what are we left with? If the power grid goes down, we're going to need to repair a lot of stuff, and it's not here. Take some months for that. Buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle, and also join us over at civilizationcycle.com. We'll
us
be right
at
back after the break.
freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Oops. Here we go.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food. If you're like really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjory Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjory will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
I think I mistimed that a little bit. Anyway, welcome back to Civilization Cycle. Wrong one. There we go. We're just back a little early, I think. Yeah, there we are. We're waiting for the Dubai. The timing went off a little bit. Let's see here. The cold. Yeah, if you live by Kansas City, right?
Well, welcome back for the second half of Civilization Cycle. I didn't hear the music start. What happened to our favorite AC/DC song?
I don't know what happened there. I was in limbo.
I don't know. New year, new vibe, new songs, new break time.
Let's do it.
So anyway, thank you so much for joining us for the second hour right here on Civilization Cycle. Ransom Godwin tuning us in here, holding the fort down while I was getting my slow buttocks back in the chair here. Usually there's some music that plays at the break that, yeah. Anyway, we're back on it. So this polar vortex, because the reason I was looking out at the update out there too. So Ryan Hall, y'all, if you know who he is. Now, if anybody is looking for some information, I'm going to give you a couple names here so you can find your own charts and do your own research. NextLab, NEXLAB. And those were the charts that Ransom was showing where they were moving graphics on the charts. NextLab, that's from, I think it's DuPont University. You can make your own model runs, and you can do it like specifically where your region is, and you can like plug in a huge amount of parameters there. And that's called NextLab, NEXLAB, and run your own charts. And you can use the European model, or you can use GFS. Just stay with those mainly, and you can do different kind of things, temperatures, moisture, snowfall, whatever you like to do. Ryan Hall, y'all, he's more of a storm chaser, but he is big on this one. He said, this is going to be everything at once. This is a game changer for American infrastructure. This is a game changer. Okay. Comes from a pretty well-known person in the whole weather space here. Ben Knoll, Ben Knoll, Noll. He has a huge amount of moving graphics on his Ben Knoll Weather. And Chris Martz, that's Chris MartzWX. He's a good one too. Smart boy coming up, really intelligent, leading the pack in on the new generation on calling the BS on what the whole narrative is for the scamola, looking at previous temperature records compared to today. Who else would be out there? Ryan Maue, Ryan Maue, Ryan Maue. I pulled a lot of charts from his. They run. He used to be with Weatherbell, and now he's spun off and done his own service with weathermodels.com. You can check out their free portals there. And also Big Joe Bastardi. And he was Weatherbell original founder, and Big Joe Bastardi. Yeah, man. So those are the ones I'm following on X that give you a huge amount of free charts so you can follow this. And what's scary for me is these guys are miles ahead of anything on the National Weather Service. Like originally, those guys all started putting up charts, and where I pinged in on some of the stuff like 5 days ago. Or is it 5 or 6 days ago? You have to look at my first videos and see how many days ago it was. The National Weather Service only yesterday started to talk about this. But the independent journalists were ahead of it by 5 days. That's not right. That's not right at all. Like, hey, why are they waiting so long to tell everybody? And how could they not be on it? And again, even in my local weather station, I understand they go out 5 days or something, 7 days. But this is an all-encompassing thing where they're just talking historic everything on this, pegging charts everywhere. Even like 50-year weather forecasters are going, well, this is something we've never seen before. Okay, this is the magnitude of it. Yet the local weather stations are still not talking about it. They're just like, oh, your 5-day forecast. Yeah, dude, there's something so historic ripping through and will be a 3-pulse civilization changer here. And they're like, well, your picnic weather will be good on Saturday. Like, what about next week, Wednesday? You know, I just don't understand why they're so afraid to tell people in advance of these like massive events coming in. It just makes me not believe anything more that these, I hate to use the word mainstream media, but, more of the classic print and television media. They should be the number one people out there. They have the widest expanse for Ma and Pa kettle on Main Street to get people ready for this. And I'm shocked that our National Weather Service is not talking about this more. They just put a big blue dot on the map and go, oh, it's going to be below normal temperatures. Oh, yeah, there's going to be some ice coming. We'll get you more details after the weekend. I'm like, dude, after the weekend, that's like next Monday. We're going to be in the thick of like inch deep ice on our wind turbines across the United States in the Midwest. And you guys are talking about updating next week. This is the sickness that we have within our system. Truly, it's a sickness. It's rotting from within. These, come out on Monday kind of update things during adverse and unprecedented conditions like this. You need to, get out of this old 1950s mold and come into the modern world. We're using social media to push through by minutes. And I am shocked nobody's in these offices putting out this information. It's a disservice to everybody out here. You're risking lives. And all these others out here in social media are taking over what the government should be doing. We should all be getting paid for this. All of you in the National Weather Service should be fired. You all should lose your jobs, absolutely, and let the social media people take it over, because we're doing a far better job, more reliable, on the minute than you ever have. Building in with your narratives and now delaying, oh, we're going to wait until Monday to release the next set of charts. Come on. Really? There's got to be some changes that happen after this event here, because clunkiness of like government moving at the speed of a snail versus something that's literally lightning speed, where people are running with these charts and making their own model runs and pointing out different places along the East Coast, Central Mountain area, whatever. They're all just like dissecting it and putting out their own analysis and their own regional areas and running just circles and circles and circles around these governmental weather people. The real media is now the alternative social media, because we can't rely on clunky, ancient reports coming out once a week when something that's changing by the minute. I mean, we really need to revamp a lot of things. And I hope that, when it comes into it, and I don't want to really get political because I never have been. I don't care who's and all, it's just if we ever did away with the Federal Reserve at that point, I might think that there was some real change happening. But you stealing 2% of my money every single year on a plan that their benchmark is 2% inflation, that's 2% theft of my money. That has been going on since I've been born. So for the little, red or a blue or an elephant or a donkey to come rocking in there, we're going to change. No, nothing's changed. You push the envelope down the road, but you're still stealing 2% of everybody's wages every year. Once that changes, perhaps I will believe there's a real change in the system. But until that changes, I just have you're the same, the uniparty. Until that changes, everything's still the uniparty. So if they can clean house and get rid of some of these clunky agencies and actually replace it with people who want to do the job, that's their hobby, they relish this, they live, eat, and breathe it, and they would do it for free anyway, and give 100 times better, more reliable information on Johnny on the spot than any of these guys are doing. That's who we need leading our country and in charge of these, different divisions within the country. People who love it as their hobby, not just because they wanted to get a paycheck and take gifts from people and just barely show up at the office and just barely get by. No, those days are done. We're moving into a new world here, 2025. Ransom, sorry, man, I'm rambling. You go. It's irksome, man. I get to grind my teeth sometimes when I see these idiots out here, and they're.
I was just thinking though, if you go over to Drudge Report, which it's a little different than it used to be, but it still
it really changed a lot, didn't it?
It still drives the news cycle.
It does
for most things. So if you look on here, there's a lot of stuff they're pushing, but the weather is way down here. In this little one of the off over here to the side, they're showing it. They want you to be afraid of this stuff. So what they're doing right now is holding off because they have a fear news cycle. And they know that the stories that are going on today, with how fast the news cycle goes, won't really instill that much fear in people by Monday. So Monday, they'll come out and they'll tell you all of this stuff about the storm of the century or whatever, but it'll all be too late for you to do anything practical about it if you're just now hearing about it. So all of the people that know it's coming, and this is the other thing, you remember, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago, I had one article up there that said Google AI can predict weather accurately up to 10 days in advance, right? And then you're talking about the meteorologists that don't do anything now except for get on their computer, go check the AI and see what the AI says, and then they regurgitate that on the local news. So they're not doing meteorology anymore. Like, you don't ever see a guy get on the news and go, well, the predictions are this, but my experience says that it's going to do this. They don't do that. They just verbatim read what the AI said is going to happen, which I have to admit, most times is pretty accurate. But all of these sources are using different AI to predict where the storms are going to go. And they don't do the old style, deductive logic method and say, well, it could go here. If it goes here, you should be prepared for this. They don't really do that. They just say, here's what the outlook looks like. And they let the AI play its run through, which is the same thing I'm using. But what I saw just a minute ago was a pretty big pattern that no one's talking about. And I'll show you. It's this area right around Kansas City. You can play it out. And that's the area that gets bombarded over and over again with these pulses of cold air. So like everywhere else is going to change temperature for a day or half a day. But once this starts going here, right there around Kansas City, it's going to get really cold by Monday, right? It just starts getting colder and colder, but it re-hits them over and over again. So that purple's just going to keep going down. And then what you said on the 13th, this thing is showing different stuff than just 5 minutes ago. But
yeah, and that's where all the wind farms are in America too. Like that blob you're watching there takes out our wind farms in still air. They call it a wind drought again and again and again. Right.
So from Monday, if you play this out, Kansas City will get bombarded with sub-zero temperatures multiple times.
What are those temperatures there that you're seeing on the light pinks? What are those temperatures reading below 0 Fahrenheit?
This is -8 right here in the middle. So the dark purple.
Yeah, go to that really very light purple. That's where the lowest temperatures are. The lighter that gets toward white and trending toward really very light colored pink, that's where your coldest temperatures will be.
Yeah, so you see this repeated.
So stop it there. Left. Oh yeah, right at that white, right in there, that white.
Pick -29.
Yeah.
That's pretty cold, man.
Yeah. That's 29 degrees Fahrenheit below 0.
Right.
Those are northern Canada, Yukon, north, getting into the Arctic Circle type of temperatures. Down here in America, in the lower 48, down in mid-America, literally Arctic temperatures. Not 80 degrees Fahrenheit below 0, but getting close. If you're trending toward 30 below 0, that's very cold for some of these places. They're not prepared for that. Our grid is not prepared for this, and our windmills and these wind farms are definitely not prepared. They stop functioning at 0 degree Fahrenheit. And they become almost non-functional around 5. And if you have prolonged days of this with no wind and things start to break because of the cold, I mean, this is just a recipe for disaster here.
I kind of luck out over where I'm at because
I know you're going to be all nice and toasty, man. Send me some pictures of the sun.
Right. Well, we have a natural block here. It's the Sacramento Mountains. So every time you see these cold blasts come down, it's 5 miles away, a difference of probably 30 degrees. Like, so right up the mountain, I'm at 5,000 feet. You go up to 10,000 feet, and then everything east of there will be frozen. This happens every time to us. So we get to sit here in relative safety in this little valley that I live in, which is really cool. It's been stable.
Can I throw a thing about 5,000 feet at you real quick?
Yeah.
All right, so everybody out there listening, when you start to look at some of these charts, you're going to see them. They're going to try to confuse you, and they're either going to put it in Fahrenheit or Celsius, which is confusing for Americans to give you. Why would in America would they release degrees centigrade charts like Celsius charts? Makes no sense. We should all be getting Fahrenheit charts. Okay, I understand the European model; they're running on a little bit different thing, but you're going to get also different millibars on the. They'll either call it 2-meter ground temperatures, which is literally like 6 foot, like at the top of my head here, like 2 meters off the ground, 6 foot up. So the 2-meter ground temperature, that's actually where when you're walking on the ground, what the temperature is going to be. It's going to feel like that when you're walking through that air on 2-meter ground. But then where Ransom's talking about around 5,000 feet, that's 850 millibars. 850 millibars. So you can see some of these charts where they'll talk about 850 millibar, 500 millibar, but 850 is just at about a mile high. So if you see this, they put those charts out for people just like Ransom. So if you're at a mile high, and there's a lot of elevated places here in North Carolina mountains, over in Colorado and everywhere along that way in the ranges. So they try to give you a ground temperature at 5,000 feet for those that are living at elevation. Now that temperature at 850 millibars probably might not be the same as if you're a mile lower in the atmosphere, the temperature is going to be, well, warmer. So these 850 millibar charts are generally far cooler because you're a mile high up into the atmosphere. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you ever see 850 millibar charts, that's a mile high for reference. And then you're going to be looking for ground temperatures, 2-meter ground. And that'll give you a real on-the-ground feel for that. And it's not wind chill. It's just like, what's the on-the-ground temperature, which Ransom was looking through some of those charts there. Just an FYI, because there are going to be a ton of charts flowing at you as this thing takes hold. And temperature anomaly, for those listening also, a temperature anomaly just means like your average temperature for this time of the year, let's say it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's like your average for the nighttime low. When you're looking at these charts and it says temperature anomaly, you take that number and you subtract it from your regular. So if it's 40 degree temperature anomaly and your average date or your average nighttime low is 30 degrees, that is going to put you at 10 degrees below zero. Because you're just looking at the anomaly. It's not going to be 47 degrees below zero. It's going to be 47 degrees or 37 degrees, whatever, off your regular normal temperature. And that's how you read that chart too. The anomaly is based on your average temperature, and then subtract that number from your average temperature, and you will arrive at the temperature it will be in your area. So we're here at 30 degrees, and it's supposed to be 47 degrees below the average. So that puts us at, well, 17 below. I don't know. That's and then I get into weird math then, so I'm not going to go there. But anyway. Yeah, and all that white that you're seeing on that chart there, that's at least 10 degrees below zero, sub-zero. And then you see that pocket breaks off and comes way south, and then it hits Washington, D.C. That's what I'm saying. Washington, D.C. is going to be sub-zero temperatures. Coming into a fully staffed every office building, 100% hands on deck. They're going to draw so much power for this inauguration that they very well might black out other parts of the eastern seaboard to get the power to them for the inauguration. It's crazy. And you can that other part, a little cut off low there too. You see it's a white that's cut off and it's all surrounded around everything. That also is sub-zero temperatures that are going to come down into Tennessee.
Right. This one's the 9th right here, and I'll switch it back. That other one was.
Yeah, the 9th, and then the other one I cut out there was like the 12th, 13th, all the way up to the 19th.
Right.
I pulled up 2 model runs, so you can see it's a repeated wave. It's wave 1, wave 2, and then after the 17th, it's too far out to really know what's happening, and that's wave 3, somewhere around 17th to the 20th. So if the grid goes down or some major, your pipes are busted and all kind of crazy stuff's happening, you only have a day or two until the next front comes in, and it's going to smash low cold temperatures again. And then you get the third wave, and then it's too far out to know what happens after that. But anyway, that's why I keep harping on this. It is a crazy event that's coming in. It's like a Category 6 hurricane.
Well, I wouldn't count on your electric blankets. Your electric blankets might not work out unless you got it on a battery or a generator.
No, but my chinchilla coat will.
But
how dare you?
I'm serious. These things, I got a bunch of these, and I got some more from somebody on Christmas, and I've never used one because I always have the right attire for any situation. But if you don't, these are tiny, and you could wrap this in a space blanket or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10, and you can protect yourself with about this much space in your purse, backpack, or, like your glove box, whatever. And if you have water, I would make sure that you have water that's drinkable. Even if it freezes, you can melt it back down. You don't want that stuff outside. I've been seeing all these articles about how toxic the rainwater is. So you can't even just go out and, melt some snow down or some rain without toxifying yourself. You still have to filter it, which is crazy that we now live on the earth and you can't even drink the normal water out of the sky. And
does anybody have any filters like Berkey filters or anything like that?
I have several gravity filters, water straws. You need at least three different avenues of filtering your water just to be in, for sure. And if you live in those houses, I don't know, how they used to tell people if the power's going to go out or whatever, or the water's going to be shut off, to go ahead and store a bunch in the bathtub. And if you got multiple baths, just go ahead and fill it up. You'll be able to use that for cleaning and whatever. And staying clean is another thing that you would want to do, especially in this circumstance. Like I said, a lot of people get sick, and it's the combination of being cold and sick.
All right, so randomly buzz in here. Yeah, buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Our top supporters. Thank you so much, Tracy Thomas, Michael Horton. Oh, excuse me, Michelle Horton. My bad. And David Campbell tossing us some double espressos and triple espressos tonight. Thank you. And it is all about us trying to bring you this information here and allowing us to, we got running costs for our software and different integrations. We got to integrate across multiple platforms. It's not like one plug and play. So we need all these different softwares to integrate through. So that's what these costs go to for us, to make sure that we can bring in this information every week. And we're just trying to get better and better at it and kind of perfect our craft. We've come a long way in terms of technology integration since we started going live like this and being able to show you the news articles while we're talking versus just, having some blank screens, listening to more of an audio podcast. We're trying to integrate it after we went up to Tim Pool, up to their studios up there, and then we saw the light of what was possible for this. But Ransom, back to you here.
Well, in the long term, right now they're trying to fill everybody's heads with every possible fear that they could possibly, make you think about, so that you're not, dealing with everyday problems that you should look into the future and predict. And I think the reason that is because they find us as easy to control as ants. And here's an article that says that ants are smarter than humans. Watch as tiny insects outperform grown adults in solving puzzles. Well, that's nature, but then we also got AI that's micromanaging people just like we're ants. And supposedly, here's one that says they can catch drunk drivers. But doesn't it make you wonder why we have to worry about so many things, like people running around trying to do other people harm? There's people that get kidnapped. There's this, that, and the other thing. But in reality, we have a sophisticated network of surveillance that is really unmatched, maybe other than Russia, China, and Israel. But the fact is, there's so many surveilling assets going on that there should be no crime in the continental United States or elsewhere in the Western world that has this much surveillance. Like nothing. Kidnap children, anything. They can track it and find it within an hour. And it's funny because I'm seeing everybody on the internet catch on to these softwares that keep track of every person that's walking, every car that's moving, parked, what have you. And they keep track of this nonstop. And people are starting to understand now that they're being controlled. The problem is I made a video in 2015 that was kind of mocking the fact that they were already using that software in the late 90s with a sensor called Argus that's like having 10,000 predator drones looking at an area at a time, and it has the highest resolution picture in the world in the late 90s. So this is how far back they've been surveilling cities, and now it's just, unimaginably upgraded, and they're pretending like they don't know who did what or when they did something, and it's all nonsense, which means that they're using real or fabled events to drive the fear narrative, to keep you completely distracted in every avenue of your thought process, so you can't do things like, save things for future as far as a small fortune. So you decided to do that. And they know that if they can get rid of the middle class and owning a home, then no one can have the ability to slowly gather fortunes, which means that right now, one of their biggest problems is the middle class of several countries still has enough sway with the amount of income, knowledge, and inherited wealth that they're considered an enemy, so to speak, on being able to run things. And right now we're about to have a chance to rebuild the middle class, not through the government, not through any savior that got, elected or didn't get elected, but through your own means. And this includes learning how to garden, learning how to fix stuff. I constantly look at these videos where people are losing their minds because something on their car broke and they took it to the auto shop, and then there's like, well, it's easy to fix, but it's going to cost you, thousands of dollars for not only for the part, but for the labor and everything. So I don't really know about that because I've never once done that. I always just figure out how to fix whatever it is, unless it's something that's so big I have to go get new tools for, which tells you that you're not prepared enough if you need bigger tools. So you got to go get those bigger tools so you can do bigger jobs. And it seems like everybody should now have the ability to have a working automotive shop / electronics shop at their home and have all the tools to be able to fix those things. So, and remember this, if worse comes to worse, each one of your Hondas or whatever out there is a generator. So if you got gas in that thing and you need something, that runs off of energy, you can convert your car over to a generator. I mean, basically that's what it is. It's a Honda generator, whatever brand you got. Some are better than others, but there's no real reason to let the elite seize control of your life. We have enough resources still, even though, things have kind of been going in the wrong end. And we might be able to hold it together long enough for Americans to start rebuilding products where we have a choice of things that might last longer than a year. Because right now everything's disposable. Even, like when you go down to AutoZone and you buy a set of wrenches, I've gone through like 3 or 4 sets of those. They strip easy, they rust easy, they break. So you have to get like a real good set of tools that's real forged steel and have every size available, like metric, standard, it doesn't matter. And then you also have to have wood. Like you would be amazed at what I could do with the skill saw. And every time I have to do something, I think, I need a jigsaw. I should already bought a jigsaw for this project, but I didn't. And if you have all of those things and you have a way to charge them, I would go with rechargeable stuff, not just the corded stuff. Because even if you have a generator, at least you could charge your tools and get progress accomplished. And nobody's coming to help you. I mean, we've had such a glaring example. I keep harping on this hurricane, but if that didn't teach you, like the last several hurricanes and disasters didn't teach you, if that didn't teach you, nothing will. No one's coming. And if they do, there's strings attached. So you need to be able to do it yourself. You need to be able to trust some people in your community to borrow trade tools, and maybe they have food that you don't have and you can trade that and things won't be so bad, because we know that there's simple things in survival which can be, broadened for the whole family. If your kids have toys, if they have warmth, if they have like a little bit of light, they're not even going to know it's an emergency, so they can just kind of survive right through that. And adults know what's going on, and they're the ones that actually worry themselves into dangerous situations because they weren't prepared.
Yeah, and even just something as simple as, okay, if your power goes out and you don't have a generator, or even if you do, and then your refrigerator is starting to get maybe slightly warm, you're going to want to take your food outside because it's sub-zero temperatures. But you probably just don't want to leave it laying out on your deck or something where animals can come in. Just building a simple wood box with some OSB or something in a pinch in a matter of half an hour to give you a storage box to put your food in the cold weather outside, so no animals will come in and get your stuff. Just something so simple like that would be a tremendous lifesaver. And for me, Ransom, you were talking about wrenches, stripping and thing. I break more drill bits out here. I'm buying every time I find drill bits. If I can get them in an estate sale or get extras, I just have a Himalayan size stack of drill bits because they're always breaking. Always. Yeah. That is one thing. If you go, well, I have a real nice set of drill bits. Yeah, for a little bit until you really start using them. And then suddenly quarter of them are gone. And a lot of them are too small to use. You're not going to ever use something that tiny, microfiber kind of drills. But the ones that are in that sweet spot that you're always going to continuously use for like pre-drilling, if you're going to put screws in so you don't split the wood, like that kind of stuff, it just breaks. You got the wrong angle on it. You smacked it against something by accident, walking around a door or walking around a chicken coop or something. You hit it at the wrong angle. Boom, that metal snapped off. Those things you just plow through your drill bits, like you're talking about those strippable wrenches that aren't hardened steel. And another thing, that DC to AC converter where you plug it into your cigarette lighter and then it comes out and you actually have like a 120 plug in and you got all the chargeables to be able to do your phones and tablets and everything coming off your car after you start it. Plus there's a whole bunch of gasoline. As long as you filled your tank, your car holds probably however many gallons of fuel. I got a pickup truck, so mine holds quite a bit more. And it's just, we're going to go through our paces here trying to get through this thing, and everybody's going to learn what they're made of, who they can trust, what you're short on for the next set of it. Maybe it's not going to be, you won't have enough time to get out in 1 or 2 days because everything will be shut down in these snowy or icy areas and power out. And everybody laughs at me when I talk about Bitcoin and thing or cryptocurrency. Oh, how are you going to use your credit card? What are you going to do? When the power's out, the power's out. Your ATMs don't work. Your credit cards don't work. You got cash. And they may or may not have change. That's why you want to have a bunch of small bills and coins with you, so you can make change yourself. So when something costs this much, you can pay exactly for it. Because I would be just a little bit angered if I went in to get something. It was $4.95 and I only had a 20, and the person behind that, I don't have any change. Take it or leave it. It's 20 or nothing. I really need the candles. Well, I don't have change, bro. It's $20 or you don't get the candles. And it's going to come down to that, where people just won't have the change. Because those bills are going to circulate real quick. Everybody's going to come rocking in with 50s and 20s, but very few people are going to come in with a handful of quarters, nickels, dimes, and a bunch of ones and fives. That's going to become the premium, is having that small bills and small denominations. Everybody's got 20s. Very few people have a pocket full of fives and ones. That's where the value is. And the reason I brought it up, I got an A or B question here for you. It's a quiz, everybody. Pop quiz. Commodities question. Ooh, I'm going to scare you. We're going to get financy. I'm going to talk about commodities here for a second. Which commodity had the greatest rise in price in 2024? Bitcoin or cocoa? It's an A or B choice. What do you think, Ransom? Bitcoin or cocoa? Which one rose the most in 2024? Anybody else? I'm not going to tell the answer. You got to guess, Ransom.
I went and got my apocalypse money. I got this whole thing.
What's that now?
You were talking about, you want small denominations.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, man. Go.
And I don't know if you guys ever seen that, what's that movie with a assassin guy, the John, what is his name? I already forgot. But
John Wick.
John Wick, right. But they're using this, right? This is their petty cash. Then they got the gold ones, right?
Yeah, right.
So, if I went over to the neighbors with this, they're going to take it more than they're going to take a $10 bill. That sound, But I'm saying, this is something, it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. They'll take it. Even the smallest village off the map, when you pull this out, they know what it is. It's silver. They're like, sure, I know what that is. I'll take that. And there's so much of it. I got, I don't know how many dimes, but even if you're collecting this old, if I can get it focused, just the regular $50 and full dollars there.
Is that an Eisenhower?
Yeah. And, I don't know what that is, like 60 maybe percent or something like that. But if you're getting these good ones, like the old 76 full dollar there, or is that a $50 too? I can't even, no, that's a full dollar. But these ones are better from wherever they're from. Britain, Canada, US, it don't matter. And that sound.
Has that clink that's very recognizable, doesn't it? It's hard to fake that one.
Right. So I don't know about everybody else, but anytime you can get your hands on that, that will be real money, no matter what happens. It doesn't matter if the dollar's completely done. People are going to be I got this nice Texas one here. It's pretty cool. All that nice silver, and they will take it if you don't get robbed. That is, it's pretty heavy.
And that
in your
is
pocket.
the whole thing.
So you collect lead as well, because lead is very valuable. It's, you could shape it. It's very malleable for your needs, if you know what I mean. You could use it for all kinds of stuff. It's very versatile metal, and it comes in 12 gauge.
PB on the periodic table for those of you wondering. CU for the copper and PB. That'll get your day started right there.
Here's this article right here. I'll put it up here. That the U.S. Postal Service faces huge threat as mail workers steal millions and are targeted by criminal gangs. So if your mail ain't even safe, right? I'd be careful who sends you the silver if you order it. Make sure you get it from the right people, because they'll track it and they'll make sure it gets there. But evidently, these mail workers are being preyed upon because they know billions of dollars are going through the mail. So millions of dollars end up missing. And if you don't think this can happen with the other ones, you're sorely mistaken. I mean, how many videos have you seen of the UPS guy or the FedEx guy having a meltdown on the side of the road and I saw one yesterday where he just left the door open and there was just packages flying down the interstate, and this guy's chasing him at 90 miles an hour to tell him, hey, your door's open. I've hit like 10 packages.
None of them had silver. Take your junk back.
Right. Well, think about when you order supplies for an emergency, you need to make sure that it's way in advance, not a month before or 2 weeks before. You need to already have that stuff. So stockpiling that stuff, yeah, it might sit there forever and collect dust, but it's just like the lead. You hope you don't want to need it, but if you need it, you got it. I mean, that's just pretty simple there.
Yeah, and at the end of some of my videos, I do promote some long-term storable foods. But in these last few videos, I was very frank with everybody. You're way too late to get it for this storm. If you haven't prepared now, get out and get some beans in the store. Go buy some, dried potatoes somewhere. Go get something. You have minutes count now. So if you have a chance to get out and get some bulk dry goods, maybe some sorghum, millet, amaranth, different kinds of beans, mung beans, any kind of black beans, red beans. You got all types out there. You got lima beans. Get something dried, storable that you need to soak it in water, so it doesn't matter if it's refrigerated or not. It will store for years, plural. And then again, you have to learn how to cook with that stuff. So I was just being very honest with everybody. Like, you have waited way too long. If you're going to buy this storable food product because you're watching this video and you think, oh, I think I need to get some storable foods because the ice storm's coming in and the power grid's probably going to go down in America, at least on the East Coast and around the east of the Mississippi, I think I'll buy David's product. You're way late to the game. I'm sorry. I was very forthcoming with that. If you're buying it for this storm and this set of events, don't waste your money. Just go get something else real quick because you're not gonna have enough time. By the time you order it and they send it, you're talking weeks to get the delivery. You're not going to get it delivered. And that's the whole thing. Is like some people think that they can order it and it'll be there tomorrow on bulk supplies on storable foods. This thing is backed up out months sometimes. And my whole best advice for that was like, it's great to support the channel and all the thing, but you need to get very ready. You're not going to get it in time. Go buy something else that you can store to get you through this emergency, and then think about it. Once you get spooked enough because you didn't prepare this, then you can think about getting that the next round out when things improve a bit. But y'all need to take care of your families first and get things in order immediately if you don't have anything backed up already. I mean, it's surprising. It's just like, you see that, and I'm so baffled. Like, you see hurricanes coming, and we have hurricanes every year multiple times, and still to this day, you have people like 3 hours before the hurricane's going to make landfall going, oh, I'm looking for some plywood. Can I get some like plywood at the store at Home Depot? I'm looking for plywood. Is it in here? It's crazy how people, even at this day and age with this much connectivity and understanding, that they are still waiting till the last second to do things. Completely unprepared. Right. I look into this as sort of a survival of the fittest, and it will be at this point if the grid goes down as predicted. Only the people who are prepared are the strongest of bodies will survive through this event. If it extends out past 3 to 5 days, if it goes to a 2-week or 2-month event, man, that's going to be
right. If
our world will ever be changed, man. I'm serious.
If you were ordering the storable foods, that's for next year's hurricane. That's for next year.
Yeah, that's for next year. Not for now.
A good thing you could do, and I don't know why, but people don't remember that beans and rice go a long way. And
you can sprout them and turn them into microgreens too, and get a fresh veg out of it in less than 7 days.
Right, but you could go get, I don't know, 2 or 3 bags of each, and it would last your family of 4 for a couple of months in a pinch. Yeah, you might get sick of eating beans, but you'll be eating.
Yeah, 25-pound bag of, there's a couple of, like, black-eyed peas are my favorite, by the way. If anybody it's the white ones with the black dot on it, black-eyed peas.
New Year's treat.
That is some of the most supple, yummy, snap, sweet microgreens you can grow. And that is like a beginner microgreen. You can you throw it, get it soaked up, throw it out on a tray, water it every 12 hours, rinse it off, and you got greens coming up in a couple days. And then, even if you're not going to eat it that night or whatever, if you wait a few days until it just starts to crack and you start to see a little bit of a stem coming out of their root at the beginning of the root there, I mean, that's just great nutrition. And if you're able to wait through and let it come out to where it actually turns green, like I've grown them a lot. So once they get, a couple, 2-3 inches tall, that is some of the best microgreens you've ever had. Snappy, and they got this crispness to them. They're very sweet, and you can just like feel the density of micronutrients in there when you eat them. It only takes a small handful and you are just full powered up. There's something to be said for microgreens and being able to do what you do. But Ransom, you never answered my question. So for the number one commodity for 2024, was it Bitcoin or was it cocoa for the largest rise in prices on a commodity 2024?
I have no idea. I'm going to guess Bitcoin. No?
Cocoa.
Cocoa? That's cuckoo for cocoa.
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah, and also there's a drought in Côte d'Ivoire, so the cocoa production will decrease from this year and be less than it is this year. So unless Bitcoin goes to 250 or 300,000, cocoa is going to beat BTC once again. For those of you keeping track out there. And also real world assets. And you were talking about how are you going to be able to, kind of beat the system, well, not beat this, but just stay ahead of inflation here. It seems that there's a couple of their real world assets, RWAs. They're going to be starting to tokenize a lot of different things here. So that your silver coinage you have right there, you could wrap that into a smart contract, and as long as there was a third party holding it that can guarantee the physical objects there, you could write a smart contract against that and trade that electronically anywhere on the planet for the same value of that silver. And it would be redeemable, obviously. And a lot of people would buy that and say, all right, hold it for me. I think the price of silver is going up to 60. And then that contract will be worth, $60 instead of $30. So this is the whole ploy, is they're going to start digitizing everything and wrapping it in smart contracts as sort of instant investment products for anything and everything that could go up in price in the future that's redeemable. And this is going to be the new thing moving forward. If you can do your own modeling for weather and you can target your specific area and like make your own charts for Southeast or your specific state or whatever, it's the same thing. You can create your own contract with the goods you have in your house as long as third-party intermediary knows that you have that and can guarantee it. It's kind of like keeping your silver in a depository. Once that contract's wrapped up and there's a third-party person there that can guarantee that that good exists, you're suddenly creating your own loans out on that stuff. And this is where the big thing's going to be for 2025. But again, people could take delivery of it because they're the owners of it. They have the contract. So, double-edged sword there.
Well, I do know one of those coins will make medicine for probably over a year. Just sitting there doing the electrolysis, making your silver iodine. I mean, not silver iodine, nano silver, I guess. Colloidal silver. I don't know what's wrong with my terms tonight. You need that iodine, too, for the nukes.
No, I don't know about that. I don't think they're ever going to go that deep and that far.
I don't think so either, because they live here, too. And I don't think they're wanting to hide in bunkers or move permanently to the South Poles. But who knows who's actually running this plan? Kind of what I was talking about, them predicting the weather. They've already given over their control of deductive logic to AI. And AI is starting to run everything, whether people like it or not. And we're going to be the ants. I'm telling you. That's like the kind of obvious outcome for human beings in the distant future is some kind of gray alien that lives in an ant hierarchy. And just like the ants, they'll have what seems like, a natural process, but it'll be AI. Instead of based on chemicals, it'll be direct deposited in your mind. And that's what they're doing right now. I mean, think about all of the stuff that they got going on right now. You got the bird flu, you got the terrorist attack, you got the drones, if you still remember that from last week. But look how fast they moved on to a new set of headlines. And like I said, they'll probably keep those going all weekend until about Monday, and then they'll tell you to prepare for the cold.
It'll be the biggest storm in the last 500 years. You didn't prepare. You didn't warn us. Oh my gosh, you can already see it. Oh wait, here I got a new headline for you. Panic buying hits stores again. As Americans can feel hard times are ahead, economists are sounding the alarm about the biggest price increases in decades. Okay, well, that's going right in and going to layer on top of this whole everybody east of the Mississippi and a little bit west of the Mississippi through the Midwest all the way down through Texas. No, walk with me through the reason I was telling you this one here. Our economy is kind of in the tank right now. So if you could scare the populace into ultimate buying because of survivalist mechanism / scary, got to get through it, keep the family alive kind of thing, like how could they hype this storm to restart our economy? No joke. They try to get us. You remember after 9/11, Bush was like, well, everybody needs to go shopping. You can't let the terrorists win. You got to go buy stuff. The same thing. What if there's a mega storm coming in, the biggest storm in 500 years? And absolutely, they're going to tell you, once they start to broadcast that power grids are going to go down, oh my, you're going to watch everything fly off the shelves. And would that be enough to restart the economy again, at least boost it in the beginning here? Just asking for a friend. Because too many things are lining up. It's almost as if it's being ridden on top of and amplified with the current technologies we have. They didn't start it. I'm just saying they amplified it, riding on top of it to create an outcome for societal. So I would say pushing those who have a hand who guide society, that whatever has been here since the beginning of organized civilization is now at it again. But, to restart parts of the economy, to instill the fear. And wait a second, multiple Arctic outbreaks. Yeah, there's three, by the way, three pulses are coming. I call them pulses. You might call them outbreaks. Same, but different. Colossal winter storm to unleash. Okay. These are the headlines you're getting here. Now, they're probably going to get crazier as the weekend goes on. But what will that do? That will cause panic buying. But don't think of it as panic buying. Think of it as stimulus to inflate the economy. People don't want to spend their money right now. They're very afraid. That's the reason I was looking at that. Panic buying in his store. People can feel hard times ahead. Okay. We all see 2025 is going to be strange. People are trying to buy it now because it's going to cost more later. But imagine if you could hit that ultimate panic. What's the ultimate panic button? Nuclear? I'd be partying on the roof because I just don't care. I want to see the flash. And bro, I'm not even going to prepare because that. If it comes to that, then just enjoy your moments because that's just ridiculous. We're so far past anything repairable at that point that just enjoy it. There's nothing to come back to, right? But they're not going to let it go that far. So what's the ultimate panic button? The power grid is going to go down and you're going to get stuck in the middle of winter. So imagine all the things that would fly off the shelves, and absolutely everything east of the Mississippi and west of the Mississippi, 500 miles, would sell out in every single store in a matter of days. Imagine like the giant GDP jump that would create in our economy for the books, for the incoming prez.
Well, what happens if you start a pandemic, or a pandemic happens, I meant, after we have several bouts of electrical problems in the same area where people will panic buy first for the weather, but then for something else. And yeah, we already saw that. The toilet paper companies were happy last time because people bought excess toilet paper. And think of this, just a few weeks ago, I showed you an article that was talking about the billions of dollars worth of useless junk that people are going to buy that they didn't need over the holiday. So a lot of people just dropped all of their disposable money, and now they're in debt. They're going to be in debt all the way until past spring, probably into the summer. So now they're going to go into additional debt because they're going to be buying all this stuff. And I wonder if they're sitting at home right now just thinking, maybe we shouldn't have ought to bought that another TV. I mean, sure could use to wipe my butt right now.
What would you buy? A main thing that you could buy that would give you the most value right now? I bet generators will be gone out of most stores by the time you want to get one.
I bet they're going to have a hard time buying generators, considering most of the generators went out to the East Coast right after the last hurricane. So there was already a major buy, and not just a purchasing, but a confiscation of many, many, many generators. They're already out of play. So I don't know what that means for some people, but I bet not everybody's going to be able to buy a generator if they want one.
Now, we saw that during COVID, too. The Honda 2200i's? They had dozens and dozens of them before. You'd go into like a Home Depot or something, and there'd be, in addition to the Colemans, there were a whole bunch of other range of generators. They'd be stacked to the ceiling, like 20, 25 generators in the store, right? You'd always go in, there'd always be excess generators just like laying around. After that COVID hit, you couldn't even find one. Premiums on them were ridiculous. Prices doubled. There was a waiting stock, and even if you could possibly get them, it was like multiple years, plural, to get on a list. The supply has come back after COVID, but now we're into this emergency, and a lot of people, I'm going to say in East Tennessee, just bought them to take them over to North Carolina to help the people over there. So they got totally bought up all up and down again here, East Coast, to go help the people in North Carolina. Because if you got an extra $500, $1,000, and you want to do something to help a community, that's a big donation, a big gift. Get you a couple generators and take them in so you have constant power for these communities that were decimated and actually wiped out, smashed, literally wiped, scoured, clean. buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Thank you for joining me tonight, and Ransom Godwin right here along every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Get ready for the storm. It's going to be a big one.